Greetings, folks. This is Brian Harris with the Independent Black Voters. Our vote is not free. We are continuing our vetting of the candidates through the general election. One of the things I can tell you is that if we are looking for social justice, then we must be involved in understanding who the candidates are, what their values and beliefs are, so that we have judges that believe in and administer equal justice under the law to everyone. Today, I am here and I'm proud to have Micheal Villini. Am I saying that right? Huh?
Micheal Villini.
Villini, okay. Micheal Villini, who is here. He is a sitting judge. Tell them, give them your name, give them the judge that you, give them your sitting judge, which department, and tell us a little bit about yourself and the actual department.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Brian, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and the Independent Black Voters. I am Judge Micheal Villini. I am the sitting judge in Department 17. I've been on the bench since 2007. A little bit about my background. I am married. My wife and I, we have 6 children, 7 grandchildren. I've lived here all my life except for 3 years. I moved here, my family moved here when I was just 3 years old. So I'm a local product of Hyde Park Junior High, Clark High School, UNLV. And when I graduated UNLV, we didn't have a law school, so I had to go to San Diego. I'm not saying that reluctantly, San Diego is a great place, but I went to San Diego for law school. I graduated in 1982, and I came back to Las Vegas to start my legal career. I was one of the brand new attorneys working on the MGM fire litigation case. If you've been here for a while, you'll recall that back in the 80s. After working on that for a couple of years, I accepted a position at the Clark County District Attorney's Office for 4 years. In 1988, I left the District Attorney's Office and went into private practice. My private practice has always been a split civil criminal practice. I can tell you this, Brian, that my very first day working in the District Attorney's Office, we were watching some different courtrooms, and I decided I wanted to be a judge at that time. The reason is I was in the courtroom and there was a judge on the bench who was screaming and yelling at both parties. And I couldn't understand why he did that. And I decided one day I'm gonna be a judge and I'm gonna do the exact opposite. So what did I do to become ready to become a judge? Well, besides having a civil criminal background, I was appointed by the city council to be an alternate municipal court judge. I did that for a couple of years. Then I was appointed by the Clark County Commissioners to be a justice of the peace pro tem, handling small civil matters, preliminary hearings in criminal cases, TPOs, misdemeanor trials. And so I did that for, I believe it was 6 or 8 years. Also during that same time frame, I was appointed by the State Bar of Nevada for the fee dispute committee, and that was for 3 separate terms. Also appointed, before I took the bench, a couple of years before that, I was appointed by the State Bar of Nevada for the Southern Nevada Disciplinary Board, because I take the conduct of attorneys and the judges very seriously. And as I mentioned, in 2007, I was appointed by the governor at the time to the bench. I went through the judicial selection panel because there was an opening midterm when Judge Mike Cherry ran for Supreme Court, and there was an opening midterm. I applied, I went through the selection panel. I was one of 3 finalists, I think out of 23 candidates, and interviewed by the governor and was appointed. Since taking the bench, I've had a split calendar handling civil criminal cases. Civil cases, everything from medical malpractice, personal injury, zoning issues, First Amendment issues, union issues, just everything under the sun. And also handling the criminal cases, you can imagine everything from a gross misdemeanor to a death penalty case. So I've handled everything. And most recently, Brian, I've been appointed the Chief Criminal Presiding Judge for the 8th Judicial District Court. So I'm particularly proud of that fact. And also, since becoming a judge, I have been selected 3 times by the National Judicial College to be a discussion leader for the general jurisdiction courts. And what that is that every new judge throughout the entire country, within the first 2 years of being appointed to the bench, they have to go to the Judicial College and take a 2-week course, basically how to become a judge. And like I said, I was honored to be chosen 3 times by the Judicial College to be part of that introductory course to brand new judges. And also, I was selected by the Judicial College to be a discussion leader for advanced ethics for judges and also advanced search and seizure. And so presently I have a special assignment. I'm one of 4 judges who are on the homicide team, where we're trying to focus in on resolving those cases as quickly and as fairly as possible. One, for the victims of the crimes, because they want their day in court. Someone who's charged with the crime is entitled to have their day in court as well. And so there's only 4 judges right now that have the specialized education, training, and assignment for what's called the homicide team. I will be going back to a split calendar probably in a year or so if I'm lucky enough to remain on the bench, and that's my goal here. And so that's my background. Like I said, handle every single type of case under the sun.
Okay, I had to take off my mute. Well, good. That tells us a lot. Obviously, being here since 2007, you have a pretty strong understanding of what it takes to be a judge, and that's very good and very good. Part of what we do here with the Independent Black Voters is many times we don't know who the judges are. We don't vote, and I think that's been a major problem, because in any community, we need to know who you are, you need to know who we are, and we need to understand your values, your beliefs, and what you can do. So I'm going to start off. I'm going to ask you again, you kind of gave me a great overall view of what you've done as a judge and what the responsibilities are. So I thank you there first. Also thank you, because as a sitting judge, not everybody thinks it is important to come and talk to this group. We were fortunate enough to have Judge Eric Johnson come on earlier and talk to us. So now we have you come in and talk to us, and that means a lot to have sitting judges that see the value and time to come talk to us. Tell me a little bit, and we're not the review journal. We see what you can do. A lot of my questions are based on, tell me, in the time you've been here, how much have you interacted? What have you done to actually get the Black community to know you, a chance for you to know the Black community? Tell me a little bit about what you think are some of the issues in our community, because unfortunately, disproportionately, we're on the wrong side of the bench. And really and truly, my objective is to get equal justice, and my objective is to find a way to reduce and minimize the amount of people incarcerated, be they Black, brown, purple, or green. Give me your thoughts on that.
Well, sure, and that's a great topic and a great question. As a sitting judge, I've also been, for the last 3 years, on the Jury Diversity Committee. And that committee comprises of 3 district court judges, community leaders, and private attorneys in our community. And our goal is to reach out to the various disproportionately recognized communities, the Black community, Hispanic community, to encourage them to accept their jury summons. Please come down to the courthouse, because we need to have a fair cross-section of the community serving on our juries to make sure all of the decisions that the juries make are fair to both sides, whether civil or criminal. So I'm proud that I've been on that committee. And part of that committee, I've gone out to high schools, to different large employers, some of the hotels, some of the banks, the city and the county employers, to encourage them to allow their employees to honor their jury summons, and hopefully to pay them their regular salary while serving on a jury. Many people don't have the wherewithal to serve on a lengthy trial receiving $40 a day. I mean, we understand that, and unfortunately, that's the most we can pay. So I'm part of the committee that's been going out to the community to talk to businesses about, if your employee gets a jury summons, will you please let them honor it? And please, if you can, pay their full salary while they're serving our community. And I think that's one of the first steps, because as you know, there's a lot of Supreme Court cases. There's one case called Batson, where there's an issue of, are the prosecutors excluding Black jurors or other race and ethnicities from the jury panel without giving a legitimate reason other than their race or their ethnicity. And so that's part of the committee I've been on for the last 3 years to help alleviate that problem. Now, another thing in the overall justice system, what can we as judges do to make sure that we're not, like you mentioned, sentencing someone harsher than someone else. Is our first knee-jerk reaction incarceration versus rehabilitation? And that's a very serious concern. If you've been down to court, you know the judges receive what's called a pre-sentence investigation report. Page 1 is their name and some background information. Page 2 is their ethnicity, their age, and some other general background information. What I have done in my department is my pre-sentence investigation reports have numbers on them. I don't look at, when I'm evaluating the sentencing report, I don't look at the name. I don't look at the race, because those are pages 1 and 2. I bypass those pages. I go to page around 6 or 8. Page 6 or 8 typically has what the negotiations are, whether it's both sides agree to probation, maybe there's no recommendation, or where the DA wants to argue at the time of sentencing. I go straight there first. Then I go to the person's record, if they have one. Then I go to the facts of the offense, and I make my notes. And then I make a determination where I'm leaning. And then so I have that ready for me. And then when I go into court, then I hear from everybody else. My initial thoughts are made without knowing the person's name, race, or ethnicity. And that's what I've done, because it's a concern for me, for anybody else, that we don't allow race or ethnicity come into play when I make a decision. So I am looking at the pre-sentence investigation report without knowing any of that. I want, like the old, they're Dragnet, just the facts, ma'am. You know, just the facts. And that's what I have done in my department to make sure that decisions are not based upon race or ethnicity. And so, you know, that's something, I don't know if the other judges do that, but that's what I do. Again, I'm on the jury diversity committee. I've given talks at various organizations regarding jury duty, because that's a serious concern. Are we getting a good cross section of the community on our juries? And so, you know, that's what I've done. And also, one of the things that I do, and I don't know if this is part of the question, was as far as sentencing, I think our first goal as a judge has to be rehabilitation versus incarceration. Again, I think it's a knee-jerk reaction. Someone committed a crime, they have to be put in jail or prison. Well, all we're going to do is house people. We're not going to solve the problem. And so we have so many specialty courts, from drug court, veterans court, mental health court. We even now have a gamblers court, which I was on the committee to help create that. And I think the first thing we should look at is, can we rehabilitate this person? What can we do to help this person? And in fact, that helps the community. Our first knee-jerk reaction should not be incarceration, because housing someone does absolutely nothing for them or the community. So that's what I've been doing.
Great. Good overall answers. As a matter of fact, going forward, if there's any way that I can be involved in trying to help encourage more diversity on on that panel, I definitely would like to be involved there. But also, I like what you state, because you kind of hit some issues I was going to, that says a lot, because there is a concern that people of color, but specifically Black people, are kept off. Even when we go to jury duty, we're kind of removed very quickly. And even though it's not said, it is known to be because there is an attempt to not have Black people on the jury. And you can't say you have a jury of your peers when people when a significant amount of people who look like me are dealing with the system, but the people who are judging don't look like me. I'm glad you brought it up. That is an issue, and that's part of the whole issue of systemic racism and the understanding of what happens. So I'm going to go off. I told you this is the independent Black voters, and we want to get to know you. So I'm going to ask you a question that is your personal opinion. It is not your lawyer opinion. We have a lot going on right now. Obviously, there's a lot of push for dealing with a lot of the ills in America right now. If we want to be America and we want to be great, we have to address our ills too. So, the issue of systemic racism, the issue of imbalance, wealth equality, social justice of having balance. Just give me your overall thoughts about that. What do you think is happening today? What do you think we as a society needs to do? Just give me your opinion.
Well, on the, the racism issue is unfortunately something that we're still, as you know, as you mentioned, it's really a hot button topic now, but we've been dealing with it forever, it seems like. You had mentioned that someone like you, do they want them on the jury? Is there a knee-jerk reaction to excuse someone that looks like you? And also like me, I'm Hispanic. That's an issue also of Hispanics and other minorities being excluded from the jury panel. So, that's something that we all have to be aware of. I think one of the main problems or issues that we have is, education for our community, the opportunity to get into programs like if you have a drug issue, the opportunities to be fairly treated in the workforce, because someone who has a good education, I think their numbers are probably low as far as committing a crime. Someone who feels like the deck is stacked against them, has that frustration that can come from drug issues, education issues, the family issues. And those are all things that we as an entire community, business leaders such as yourself, myself, going out to the community to encourage people. Let's keep the family together. Let's keep our youngsters in school. Let's get off the drugs. I'm a big proponent of the drug court because there's a great success rate there. I'd rather have someone in drug treatment than incarceration, because if they have a drug issue, they have to pay for their drugs. They don't have a job. They're going to commit a crime. They're going to have a drug issue and just go on from there. And it's a vicious cycle. And so a lot of things we can do is to encourage, like I said, the education, the family, and also drug treatment. I think that's one of our main problems. I personally have been supporting and part of this organization for the last, I think, about 10 years, Inspiring Children's Foundation here in Las Vegas. And their whole goal is to, they have a phrase that says, stay on the court. It's for tennis, to play tennis, stay on the court and out of the court, okay? And so the goal is to get the family involved, to stay in, to excel in athletics, but also they have a strict requirement of excelling in education. And so I think that's a lot of the problem. I think that's that's probably a good part of the solution is the education, the family life, and let's stay off of drugs. I mean, it sounds corny, but that's a lot of the problem. I would say the majority of the people under 25 that I sentence don't have a high school education. And as you know, you can't even get the simplest job. You're going to be last on the list if you don't even have a high school diploma. And again, that goes to the cycle, Brian, as far as feeling frustrated, the inability to get a better job, and you're feeling this, the deck is stacked against you. So those are all things we can do. And Brian, you had mentioned, what can you do to help and go out to the community? I would like to enlist your help to go out to the community, because, for the jury summons, because like I said, we need to have a good cross-section of the community. I can tell you that only 50% of the people even respond to the jury summons. We have no way as a court system of knowing, what's the age, the race, the ethnicity of the people who don't respond, because if you don't respond, we don't know who you are. But 50% is terrible. Under the Constitution, the 6th and 7th Amendment, your right to a jury trial for civil and criminal cases. That's one of the most important rights, because if your liberty is at stake or if your property is at stake, we need you to come down and get involved in the system. And that's why I've given talks at various high schools and social and political organizations to encourage everyone to honor their jury summons. And so I know I sort of going around a little bit here, but all these have an impact on this. Racism has impact on fairness to everybody. And that's our goal as a court. Lady Justice is blind and supposed to be fair. And, the scales can't tip one way or the other because of, your age, your race, ethnicity, sexual orientation. religious background. And so that's the goal of all of us as community leaders and also as judges.
And you're right there. And my belief too is that's why you get more balanced. You get more balance in your judicial system when you have more people voting. I think the more people that vote, the more awareness it is to the entire judicial system that it's not about one group, it's about everybody. So I agree with you there on much of what you said. I do say this, there's a direct correlation between poverty and crime. And that's where I talk a lot about systemic racism, because if you look at things and people don't like to look at the numbers if they don't have to. But if you have a certain group that is kind of denied the opportunity because of good old boy systems to create their own businesses in their communities, to be able to run businesses, which allows you to hire people, which allows you to create generational wealth, which allows you to buy homes, because people who have something to lose will tend to follow the straight and narrow. People who have nothing to lose, if you're renting a home, if you're barely paying the rent on that, if you're living in an area that is not in great shape, then you have a problem. You're going to see people don't care. They really don't care. They lose track. I'm a believer, and that when we address wealth inequality, when we really strengthen the middle class for all, we will see a stronger America. And so we'll see a stronger America, and we'll need less judges. We'll need less prisons. We'll need less of incarceration if we see more of inclusion of wealth opportunities. So.
And Brian, I am also on, as a judge, I am the only judge from the 8th Judicial District Court, which is Clark County, that is on the statewide sentencing commission with Supreme Court Justice Hardy. Some of the things we're looking at are obviously budgetary issues, but also releasing individuals that don't need to be in prison as long as they've been sentenced. And so that's one of the things on the sentencing commission that we're looking at is there a better way that the judges throughout the state of Nevada can sentence individuals? Like I said, it goes back to rehabilitation versus incarceration. And so I'm proud that, that I'm on that committee. I'm the only judge from Clark County that is on that committee, to try to work on the systematic racism issue, the issue of unfair sentencing. And so it's an ongoing process, and I wish it didn't exist, but we're working on it. Unfortunately, we shouldn't have to work on it in 2020, but we still are. And that's why, I volunteered to be on the committee. I'm honored to be selected. And so those are some of the things we're doing. And also another thing that I have done in my courtroom, there's a program out of juvenile court called the Court Watch Program. And so juveniles who are in the juvenile court system, who are borderline as far as continuing to get in trouble, who are also about to turn 18, because then they go into the adult system. And what the program does, and I think it was created by Judge Boyd, and he's enlisted the help of some private attorneys. They will bring down juveniles to my courtroom with a parent or guardian. They will sit through an entire criminal court session. And then when the session is over, I have them come up to the bench with their parent or guardian and this volunteer attorney. And I talk to the youngster, whether female or male, and I ask them, what are they doing in their life? And I find and I'll know what their situations, if they're been charged with crimes or what have you. And at the end of the last 4 years that we had the program, we had a 100% success rate. That at least for a period of a couple of years, they did not commit any crime. They were not in the system anymore. And that's something we can do to catch it early, because I'd rather catch it early than catch it when they come to my court as an adult. So that's another thing that I am personally doing, volunteering my time. It's called the Court Watch Program, and it's through the juvenile court system.
Okay, great. bail reform. Obviously, we've now gotten bail reform. It ended up, there was an attempt to go through state assembly, but I guess it was picked up by the Supreme Court, and now we have bail reform. Now, obviously, the implementation of that versus the actuality of bail reform, give me your thoughts on bail reform.
Well, the case you're speaking about is the Nevada Supreme Court case that came down, I believe, April of this year, Valdez Jimenez. It was the case, and it was brought up by our public defender's office. And what the Supreme Court has stated is that the judges have to justify, as well as the district attorney's office, district attorney's office has to justify why they're requesting either no bail or a high bail amount versus maybe a house arrest program or maybe an OR. And what the Supreme Court told the judges and all the legal community is that if you're going to put someone in jail pending bail, or you're going to impose a bail, you have to justify it. You have to justify, are they a risk to the community? Are they a risk to reoffend? And also, is there a risk that they won't show up in court? And if they're not a risk to reoffend, and if they're not a risk not to show up in court, then we should be giving them an OR or maybe a house arrest program. It's like a curfew at their home. And so that was an important case that the Nevada Supreme Court case came down with. And so after that case came down, the defense bar was filing a lot of motions on that issue, and a lot of the bails either were reduced or a lot of individuals accused of crimes have been released on an OR or house arrest program situation. And I think it was a good decision by the Nevada Supreme Court, and I think the criminal defense bar, the public defender's office, have been filing the appropriate motions on that. Again, the whole thing is that we have to justify our decisions. And so that's the bottom line of the case is, as a Judge Villini or any other judge, can you justify why this person should have bail versus an OR? And it's basically just making all the judges do their job better. And again, it helps out the community. We're not clogging up the jail. It costs the county $198 a day to have someone in jail. Think about that. I don't know how many people are in jail right now, but $198 a day. And if they're in there for a minor offense that maybe they stole something that was $500, you're going to have them in there for $198 a day. It doesn't make sense. Now, there are situations, obviously, that someone has very serious crimes, have a lengthy record, been on the run for 3 years. Well, they're in a different situation. But I think that, a lot of people, since the case came down, there was a directive from Chief Judge Bell to the jail, to the sheriff, as far as, let's see, can we release more and more individuals that don't pose a risk to the community? And I'm in favor of that.
Right, because you hit on some key issues, because a lot of that is a poor tax, in the sense of you have many people who are in jail simply because they were riding dirty. They didn't have their plates, they didn't have their license, and they didn't do that because they don't have the financial wherewithal to do that. And once you put them in jail with no bond or a high one, then they're in even a worse situation to go in and try to get their life together. So I am glad that that has been looked up on. I believe Attorney Belinda Harris was part of that whole issue of trying to get that through. And I agree with what you said here. We have to realize that too. A lot of things that were happening with the bail was to force people to plead guilty. If I'm in jail for weeks or months and months, and a person comes to me and says, okay, if you plead guilty, it'll be time served. And even though that person may not have been guilty, do I roll the dice or do I take the deal? And that hurts people in the long run. I think people should, unless they are a danger to society, should have freedom until they have their day in court, because it gives them a better chance to get fair and equal justice under the law. So I agree with you on that. Now, one of the things I like, and I listened to what you said, you are in a unique side, at least it seems like. You've been on both sides of the fence. You worked in the prosecutors, but you've worked in the personal. So you've gotten the chance to look at both sides of the coin. And so tell me, how has that structured your beliefs and values, having the ability to not be jaded because I've been on one side all the time, but you've been able to kind of look at both sides of the coin. Tell me your thoughts there.
Sure. Well, thank you. I was in the DA's office for 4 years, but I did criminal defense work for 16 years. And so, I switched teams, if you want to call it that. And so there's a different perspective in that. And I think that perspective has really helped me out as a judge. We have some judges that have come just from the district attorney's office, and they're fine jurists, but they, that's their entire background. I have the background of having, like I said, 4 years in DA's office, but 16 years doing criminal defense work. And so I've gained that perception that, again, the knee-jerk reaction shouldn't be a conviction means incarceration. Sometimes it means rehabilitation. And that's what I always say, do we need rehabilitation versus incarceration? And I think that's given me the knowledge to read between the lines of someone's background. What was the cause of this problem? Was it drugs? Was it education? Was there mental health issues? And as a criminal defense attorney, those are things I looked at when I was representing my clients. Is what I present to the court or to the DA. Look, yes, a crime was committed here, but this person has a drug issue. This person, was in dire straits. Doesn't excuse it. It explains it. This person has mental health issues. And so, being a judge now, I have that knowledge coming. When I came onto the bench in 2007, I was already aware of the two separate arguments. And like I said, I did defense work for 16 years. So 4 times the amount of time than I was in the DA's office. So I think that's really helped me to look at both sides. And also, handle civil cases as well. I did insurance defense work. I did plaintiff's work. I did general civil work. And so I've been on both sides of the fence on the civil realm. So again, handle both civil and criminal cases. So I think that's given me that extra insight to make hopefully the correct decisions, whether civil or criminal.
Well, Mike, I thank you because I didn't know you until we talked today. And I'm going to say talking to people like this gives us a better view of who you are. I mean, most judges are pretty much unknown until you're in front of them. And so I thank you for this opportunity because, as I said, you were not in the primaries. And so this is my first time really talking to you. I appreciate you taking the time as a sitting judge to sit down and talk to me. It means a lot as I vet and we try to determine who are the best judges. We want to support those who are exhibiting fair and equal and balanced. Fair and equal and balanced law, who are treating everybody the same. That is very important. So I'm going to do this. I got to check a few other things here, but I like what you had to say today. So I'm going to give you a chance to tell everybody your contact information, give them your quick 1 minute, 2 minute version of why they need to vote for you. And then I'm going to close it out. Okay?
All right. Thank you very much. And I do appreciate the opportunity to speak to our community on why you should retain Judge Villini. One of the things, Brian, I know you meet with people running for assembly, either incumbents or people running for the position. Same for the judicial position. Every single person you have talked to, whether they're incumbent or someone running for a new position, whatever the position is, they're going to make promises to you. I'm going to do A, B, and C. And unfortunately, some people let us down. When I was appointed by the governor in 2007, I made a promise that I would be one of the hardest working judges. Well, of course, you're going to say that, Judge Villini. Well, I've kept the statistics from 2007 to the end of 2019. I have conducted the second highest number of jury trials of all the judges on the bench. When my cases go away, then I'm free. I volunteer to take someone else's case. So I'm proud of the fact that when I'm done, I don't just go home. I handle someone else's case. Number 2, for the last 13 years of conducting jury trials. Well, you can conduct jury trials, but are you making the right decision? I have kept every single decision by the Court of Appeals, Nevada Supreme Court. I am affirmed in the 90th percentile for those years. And this year, Brian, there's been about, I think, 28 decisions that are, yeah, 28 decisions or so that have come down from the Nevada Supreme Court and Court of Appeals from my department. And as you know, a decision that comes down today wasn't for a decision I made last week, specifically 6 months, a year, or 2 years. This year, my affirmance rate for the Nevada Supreme Court and Court of Appeals is 97%. And so I have conducted the second highest number of jury trials. I've been affirmed 90% of the time. So I made a promise to the community I would be hardworking, and hopefully, and I'm working smart. And if I'm fortunate enough to gain your vote and your support and retain my position, I'll make the same promise I made in 2007, and I guarantee you I will keep that promise for the next 6 years. If you want to look at my background, it's www.villani4judge.com, and that's the number 4, Villani4judge.com. I appreciate your consideration.
And thank you very much, Judge. This is the Independent Black Voters on Facebook. We went on a journey this year. Our journey was knowledge, our understanding. While who's running for president is very important, we've seen that in the last 4 years, but also who is running for local offices is as important. We cannot take our eyes off of the prize, folks. We cannot be uneducated voters voting simply because of party lines. We must be educated voters that vote for people that have the best interest of our community in hand. That's why the Independent Black Voters was created, so that we can understand and help put together the information so that you can be an educated voter. Our vote is not free. We will not have freedom unless we vote. They go together. We thank you, Mike, again, for taking the time to sit and listen to us. I encourage everybody here to watch the video and send it to at least 10 of your friends, at least 10, maybe more. We will create an informed community when we take the time to listen, learn, and watch. Thank you again. This is the Independent Black Voters on Facebook. We're signing off. Hold on for a second, Mike.